Hey guys, what's up? MadSeason here, back with another video for you. 8.1 has been on the PTR for a good while now, so in this video I thought I'd give you a short overview of all of its features. I'll start with some of the more minor features in hopes of showing you things that you maybe didn't know about, and we'll work our way up from there. First up, we have the new Island Expedition vendor. One of the problems with expeditions is that they're not too rewarding, at least in the long term. To alleviate this, a new vendor has been added which sells you pets, toys, rep items, cosmetics, and a mount in exchange for those seafarers' doubloons. You get these randomly at the end of each expedition, so make sure that you start saving them up. Prices range from 100 for the rep turn-ins, the transmog hats and pets, to 500 for the mount, which is a seahorse. Also on the Island Expedition front, they have two more maps for you to explore, and that's Jorundel and Havenswood. As you can see, kind of getting into different environments with an actual city area, whereas most of the current ones are these tropic jungles. In general as well, they said that they're changing up a lot of the spawns just to improve the overall pace of the expeditions. You can set up an extraction point where you defend an Azerite generator from the opposite faction, so it's not just all rush like it is now. So a big overhaul with expeditions as a whole in this patch, and something to keep an eye on if you enjoy them. A new thing with BfA in general are seasonal affixes for Mythic Plus. Those of you who've attempted a plus 10 this season will know about the Infested affix, where a little spawn of Gahoon pops out of an enemy, and you have to kill it before it reaches another one. When the second season starts in 8.1, that'll be replaced with the Reaping affix, which causes non-boss enemies to be empowered by Bwomsandi, and periodically seek vengeance from beyond the grave. No one knows how it fully works yet, but judging from a Horde questline, speculation is that slain enemies may spawn a ghost that you have to kite. So, watch where you run, and make sure you don't pull extra enemies. Azerite armor is also getting some changes in 8.1. First is just balance changes as you'd always expect, but also some new traits have popped up, such as this Vendetta perk for rogues, or this dot buff for Affliction warlocks. I'll have a full list in the description if you want details for your class. More interesting though are the changes to Azerite armor in regards to Mythic Plus. One of the more frustrating aspects with BfA is how this armor is handled in the weekly cache. Because they can only increment by 15 eye levels, the loot you get is very restricted and awkward, and add to the fact that only a very small percentage of pieces are good makes it a very frustrating system overall for a lot of people. A change they're releasing is that you'll no longer get Azerite armor from your weekly chest. Instead, you'll get a new currency called Azerite impurity, which you can then spend at a vendor to better target Azerite pieces that you may want. You can also get this currency from scrapping any Azerite armor obtained after 8.1. The prices and the rate at which you obtain this stuff isn't known nor finalized yet, but the current prices are as follows: a random eye level 355 piece for 125, a 370 for 400, and a 385 for 1250. As I said, you can also target specific pieces though, but it's gonna cost you. Right now, you can only get 385, and it costs a whopping 3250, which is nearly triple of the random piece. So, make of that as you will. Additionally, it was said that they're planning on adding another ring that contains spec-specific traits. This isn't retroactive or anything, and in fact, they said that it was only to be on Azerite armor from the new raid, which I'll talk about in a bit, or Season 2 dungeons and PvP. And lastly, alongside the normal rebalancing, they're also going to be removing and replacing a lot of the more boring or poorly designed traits. So again, make sure that you keep everything that you have right now. Those of you who've played Legion may remember the Paragon reputations. Basically, once you max out a rep at Exalted, you can keep gaining more for bonus caches. All of BfA's factions are being updated to the system as well. With every 10,000 rep past Exalted, you'll get a chest that gives you some extra goodies. They did say that they won't have mounts like they had in Legion, so you can probably expect things such as war resources, Azerite, gold, and so on. The typical stuff that you get from emissaries. Moving on to the more major stuff here though, next up we have a new warfront, and that's the Battle for Darkshore. It works very similar to the Battle for Stromgarde. It's a 4-stage war effort to take control of an area. New world bosses, rares, and so on. It does have its own series of quests to introduce it, which I won't spoil for you right now. Just know that it'll make sense story-wise. Rewards are most likely a work in progress right now, so I can't say too much about that. I've seen 340s at the end of the warfront, just like the Battle for Stromgarde, so that leads me to believe that the world boss and quest also give 370s. Definitely take that with a grain of salt though. And the gameplay is what you would expect. Assault bases, gather resources, kill the bad guy. I don't want to talk about it too much since it is still the PTR and there are a lot of placeholders and missing cutscenes and whatnot. There are plenty of videos on YouTube if you want to get a good idea of what it's looking like. It isn't just a copy-paste from Stromgarde because there are new buildings and whatnot, and the map itself gives you a much different experience. I guess one thing to note is that one of the big problems with warfronts right now is that there's simply a lot of waiting. They cycle very slowly, so now with this one, you'll have 2 running at the same time, which is good. There's also a new currency called the 7th Legion / Honorbound Commendation. In 8.1, these will be awarded for completing warfronts, and as they describe, on the battlefields of Tthis or Zandalar. Speculation is that you can also get them from the new Incursion feature, which I'll go over in a bit. And as for the actual items, you can get transmogs, pets, mounts, and a ring that teleports you to dazar'alor. And another little bonus here is that if you're Alliance, through the quest chain to unlock warfronts, you unlock a new customization option for Night Elves called the Night Warrior. Again, trying to avoid spoilers as much as possible here, it's basically these darker eyes. Lore-wise, think of them as Super Saiyans from Dragon Ball Z, but just for Night Elves. In current, for those of you who've completed the war campaign, you may have noticed a little message in your quest log telling you that there's more to be released. As you would expect, in 8.1 we'll see the continuation of this war campaign. Skirmishes between the Alliance and Horde resume, and you can embark on a series of quests that further progress the story of BfA. All in all, it's a couple of hours to complete if you're not rushing it. I'm not sure how much of that will be at launch. You know how they gate everything these days, so it could just be another situation where we get the first part for launch week, and then the next part a week after that, and so on. You do also get introduced to a new raid through this campaign, so let's talk about that. Well, there are actually 2 new raids with 8.1, and there's a weird story going on with the name of the first one. At first, it was called the Siege of Zuldazar, and then it was the Burning of Zuldazar, then Zuldazar Resurrection X, and now it looks like it's going to be called the Battle of dazar'alor. This is a 9 boss raid, focusing on the besieging of the Horde capital, as you'd probably guess, and it'll be the main raid of the patch. We're also getting a smaller 2 boss raid called the Crucible of Storms, which is more tied to Queen Ashara and her minions, but this was confirmed to be closed until some time after 8.1 has been live, so no real details on that yet. But as for the siege, or the burning of, or the artist formerly known as the Battle of dazar'alor, this is a little interesting because it's different depending on your faction. As a Horde, you're of course defending your city, and as Alliance, you're attacking. If you are Alliance, you'll storm the docks with your ships, and as Horde, you'll start at a jungle at the north, holding off encroaching Alliance soldiers. The bosses you fight will also differ between factions. These first 3 fights are all mechanically the same, but they just have different themes. And the next 3 for each side will be different fights entirely. You can still do the other factions' fights via storytelling flashbacks, which temporarily switches your race to match the story, even giving you the appropriate racial abilities. No word of its release date has been shared yet. If it follows the scheme of Legion and its patches, it'll be unlocked sometime after 8.1's release. And as for the Crucible, far less information has been shared about it. Like I said though, it's just 2 bosses, and they're probably the same for both factions. As for the release date, it's to be announced. Next up, we have the new Incursions. These are world events that pop up from time to time, very similar to the old Legion invasions if you did those. Keep in mind that this is the PTR, so don't take these numbers to heart, but it seems like every 20-ish hours these will pop up in one of your faction zones at random. They last for 8-ish hours, and when they're active, there'll be a handful of special world quests for you to complete. The world quests themselves give you the normal stuff such as gold, Azerite power, and so on, but if you complete 4 of them and do a little finale quest, you'll get a cache that contains a random 370 Azerite piece or a weapon. The quests are themed to match the faction war that's going on, so the Alliance kills Horde, the Horde kills Alliance of course, and the finale for the one I did was soloable, as opposed to the old Legion ones where you queued up for a 3-player scenario. So these will be pretty good for gearing up, and you should knock them out whenever you get the opportunity. They did also state in an interview that you'll be able to level up alts through these incursions, just like the Legion assaults. We're also getting a ton of class balance updates, as you'd expect with any major patch. Buffs, nerfs, and so on to pretty much every class, so make sure that you keep all of your gear and whatnot leading up to the patch, especially that Azerite armor like I said, since that's getting changed so much. More heritage armor is also being added to the game. Both Blood Elves and Dwarves are getting questlines added to the game that unlock these as unique sets for transmog. To do them, you need to be level 120 and reach Exalted with your race's capital, which is Silvermoon City for the Blood Elves and Ironforge for the Dwarves, and like all heritage armor, it's only transmoggable on that race, but with any class. A quality of life update for all of you Altaholics out there is that your Azerite amulet upgrades will now be account-wide in 8.1. As you know, at Friendly, Honored, and Revered with the Champions of Azeroth, you can upgrade the eye level of your amulet. In 8.1, as long as you do that on one character, you can do it for any character on your account, regardless of their reputation. Paladins have also been getting some attention animation-wise with 3 of their spells, and that's Avenging Wrath, the Beacon of Light, and the Light of Dawn. Here's a side-by-side comparison of all 3. And next, I had to save the best for last. In Borealis, you know how annoying it is to get to that 7th Legion emissary? You gotta go all the way to the ladder, and then across the boat, and across the planks as well. If you're awake at that point, that is. Well, before you hit that unsubscribe button, they added this little ledge so you can jump straight from the stairs and save tens of seconds. Anyways, there's also a ton of miscellaneous stuff, such as new recipes for professions, new scouting reports to upgrade your camps, model updates, mounts, and more. So definitely don't take this video as a 100% full coverage of the patch. I just wanted to mainly hit the highlights here and give you the general gist of how the patch is shaping up so far. Currently, there's no release date, although I suspect that it'll be announced at BlizzCon. Probably the following Tuesday or next if you forced a date out of me. I might end up making a video covering the more minor stuff like mounts and whatnot, so keep an eye out for that if that interests you. Regardless, I hope you found the video helpful, like it if you liked it, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Farewell for now, mortals. We hope you enjoyed today's video. See you again soon.